Therefore, my dear brethren or brothers, you should give praise to God that it has thus come to pass. We have kept these things a secret from the people, lest their belief in providence should be diminished. For you know that there are many pious and excellent men who have recorded and remembered the life and death of Jesus, but have them only from rumours, augmented and corrupted by superstition, and from reverence and piety they believe what they hear of a beloved Master. It was even so with those chosen from among the people who were called disciples of Jesus. Most of them have heard the story of his life and death only through tradition, as it has been told from man to man, although there were others who were present, but these have given no information concerning these important events. In secrecy I will now inform you of what I and our brotherhood in Jerusalem have seen and witnessed, and you know that an Esseer never permits out to pass his lips, or nothing to pass his lips, save the strictest truth. Every man who has a gift of speech should magnify God and give manifestation of him, even as God has given unto him a tongue in his mouth. We might indeed have saved our beloved brother from the vengeance of his enemies, if everything had not come to pass so quickly. It just happened so fast. And if our laws had not prohibited us from interfering in public matters, so they couldn't go and give those Pharisees a throttle and say, look here, Nevertheless, we have saved him in secret as he fulfilled his divine mission in the sight of all of the universe. Indeed, that a man die for his faith does not increase the glory of God, but that he, full of devotion and divine confidence, suffer himself to be subjected to martyrdom for his faith. And this resolution, firmly fixed in mind, constitutes the fulfillment of our work in the sight of the world. Therefore, pay good heed to what I now tell you, that you may judge for yourselves of the rumours that have reached you hence and from Rome. Here is a large vacant place in the document, caused by the destroying influence of time, the deciphering of which is not possible from the still existing remains. Let's see, little note there put by the author or the translator, probably the author. There's a piece missing. The procession in which was the doomed Jesus and two thieves wound its way out of the entrance to the valley that leads from Jerusalem to Golgotha, the place of execution. The women cried loudly when they beheld Jesus, looked upon Jesus, almost sinking down under the weight of the cross, and his wounds from the scourging he had undergone bleeding profusely. So they whipped the hell out of him, right? Just like the Passion of the Christ. Pretty much the same. Having arrived at the barren mountains, ridge, Gileon, where nothing grows, and which lay on the north side, through which the lonely valley of death winds its way, they halted, and Jesus fell to the ground, his tortured body losing all its strength. Well, okay, he was human, right? A human body, physical body, right? Meanwhile, the Roman soldiers were selecting places for erecting the crosses. This done, they desired to prove their sympathy with the sufferers by giving to them a drink that made them unconscious, so they had a heart. Okay? These people had a conscience, they had a heart. According to the custom before crucifixion, this drink was made from sour wine mixed with wormwood, and was called tosca. But Jesus did not wish to die for his faith and the truth as a drunkard, wherefore he refused to drink of it, having knowledge from our order of the qualities of the mixture, which he knew by testing it. And the crosses being erected, the time was now come when the punishment was to be inflicted upon Jesus. The first ceremony was to tear his clothes from his body, but in order that this might be done, it was necessary to divest him of the soldier's mantle that he wore after scourging, and put on him his own clothes, which latter were then torn off his body, as the law requires. So it's talking there about the cape with the cape that the Roman soldiers wore. They tore it off and put it on him. At the request of the servants of Sanhedrin, the cross designed for Jesus was placed in the middle between those for the two thieves, thereby denoting that his was the greatest crime. They had even distinguished his cross from the others, for although they commonly were constructed in such a manner that the perpendicular beam did not reach above the cross beam, his was of different form, the perpendicular beam reaching far above the cross beam. They then laid hold of Jesus and, lifting him up, placed him on the short stake which is always put in front of each cross, that the body of the criminal may rest there while being tied. So is this cross he's describing here a T-shape? Actual capital T. In the same manner they tied his feet and wound halfway up his legs strong cords which also drove their circulating blood back to the heart. After this they drove through his hands thick iron nails, but none through his feet, for this was not customary. I note this particularly, my dear brethren, inasmuch as it has been rumoured that he was nailed through both his hands and his feet. Thus the just hung, exposed to untold sufferings in the heat of the sun, which on that day was extreme, and fatiguing was the soldiers took possession of his clothes according to the customs. So we're just thinking there in the scriptures where he comes through the door and Thomas is doubting that it's him, and he says, unless I see your hands pierced and etc., then I won't believe. So Jesus shows him his hands with nail holes in it and also his pierced side, but he didn't show him holes in his feet. Okay, why did he leave that out if that had happened? So obviously it didn't happen. Okay, it's just his hands and his piercing on the side. Yeah, or through the wrists, however they hung them. Crucified them in those days, right? The cloak they cut into 4 parts, but the tunic was woven and could not be torn asunder, wherefore they cast lots for it. Yeah, played dice for it probably. After the noonday, when the sun had turned, there came throngs of people from the city, multitudes of them, right? Drawn there by curiosity, and there were several priests present, gloating over their sinful vengeance. We got him! We got him at last. Now he's going to pay. They derided him, bowed down as he was with grief and pain, and exhorted the people to mock him. These priests, etc. Right? Jesus suffered quietly, directing his gaze to the sky. He heard not the woman of his tribe from Galilee, who was standing some distance away, from wringing their hands and lamenting his, as they thought, ultimate timely death. Wonder how they reacted, besides crying and all that sort of stuff. Did they go lol, 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 all that sort of stuff? Make a hell of a noise. These sounds of anguish and lamentation were drowned by the noise of horsemen advancing to the scene. Roman soldiers probably. This was this high priest Caiaphas with a large escort of servants who came to mock and deride the crucified Son of God. And even one of the crucified thieves joined with them in deriding him. So obviously this Caiaphas says, you're up there, if you're the Son of God, you got to get yourself down, all this stuff. So the thief on his right said the same thing. He joined in, right? Mocking him. For he had secretly hoped that Jesus would have delivered both himself and them through a miracle. Now the Romans, in derision of the Jews, had fixed a tablet or plate on the cross over his head, whereon in 4 different languages they designated him King of the Jews. This deeply angered the priests, but inasmuch as they feared Pilate, they exhausted their wrath by mocking Jesus. So instead of getting in Pilate's face over it, they got in Jesus' face. Darkness descended over the earth, and the people returned to Jerusalem. But Jesus' disciples, his friends and the elders of our holy order, remained on Golgotha. Our order having nearby a colony for worship and for partaking of our feast of love. And Jesus recognized his mother from among the weeping women from Galilee, standing close by the silent John, the evangelist. It's the evangelist, the revelator, because he's quite young. Apparently he lived to be 100. Jesus called out loudly in the anguish of his pain, citing the 22nd Psalm, praying God thereby to deliver him from his sufferings. There were still a few Pharisees remaining on the mountain who intended mocking him, because they had expected and hoped that Jesus would descend from the cross, the worldly Saviour of the people, and as this had not come to pass, they felt themselves deceived and were therefore angry. The heat grew steadily more intense, more unendurable, and a fire was forming in the earth and air. It's so hot, right? You couldn't breathe probably. Such as is essential to the purification of the elements. The Esseer brethren, through their knowledge of nature and its elements, knew that an earthquake was coming, as had formerly occurred in the days of their forefathers, or our forefathers. As the night approached, the earth began a terrible shaking, and the Roman centurion became so terrified that he prayed to his heathen gods, or his pagan gods. He believed that Jesus was beloved by those gods. Most of the frightened people hastily departed from the place and returned to Jerusalem, and the centurion, who was a noble man of compassionate nature, permitted John to conduct the mother of Jesus close to the cross. And she was allowed to go up there and touch him and all that sort of stuff, talk to him, whatever. Jesus was consumed with thirst. His lips were parched and dry, and the pain was burning in his limbs. A soldier put a sponge dipped in vinegar on a long cane of hyssop, and from this Jesus quenched his thirst. As he recommended his mother to the care of John, it was growing darker, although the full moon should have been shining in the heavens. From the Dead Sea was observed to rise a thick reddish fog. The mountain ridges round about Jerusalem shook violently, and the head of Jesus sank down upon his breast. When he uttered his last groan of anguish and pain and passed away, a hissing sound was heard in the air, and they of the Jews that still remained were seized by a great fear, for they believed that the evil spirits who dwell between heaven and earth were proceeding to punish the people. Yeah, it sounded like snakes hissing. Hissing to us makes us think it's snakes. You know, the evil spirits hissing at these men, etc. It was that strange and unusual sound in the air that precedes an earthquake. Could be something completely different there, right? Pockets of ground opening up and air being released. Hot air or something like that. Soon the mountain began to shake, the surrounding country and the city commenced to rock in the thick walls, and the temple gave way until the veil in the temple parted and fell from its place. Well, in the original ancient Galilean Aramaic, I think it was the doors split open, the doors to the temple. Maybe it's the veil in your modern Americanized English versions. Even the rocks burst asunder, and the hewn sepulchres in the rock were destroyed, as were also many of the corpses kept therein. And as the Jews regarded all this extremely supernatural, so the Roman centurion believed now in the divinity and innocence of Christ, and comforted his mother, Jesus' mother, Mary. Although our brethren did not dare to tell the people, as it is a secret with us, nevertheless they well knew the cause of this phenomenon of nature, and believed in their brother without ascribing to him supernatural powers. Dear brethren, you have reproached us in that what we did not save our friend from the cross by secret means, but I need only to remind you that the sacred law of our order prohibits us from proceeding publicly and from interfering in matters of state. So they were like anonymous, you know. Didn't want anyone to know who they were. They were members of this brotherhood. Moreover, two of our brethren, or brothers influential and experienced, did use all their influence with Pilate and the Jewish council in behalf of Jesus, but the efforts were frustrated in that Jesus himself requested that he might be permitted to suffer death for his faith, and thus fulfill the law. For as you know, to die for truth and virtue is the greatest sacrifice a brother can make. There was a certain Joseph from Arimathea, supposedly Jesus' uncle. He was rich, and being a member of the council, he was much esteemed by the people. He was a prudent man, and whilst he did not appear to belong to any party, he was secretly a member of our sacred order, and lived in accordance with our laws. His friend Nicodemus was a most learned man, and belonged to the highest degree of our order. He knew the secrets of the therapeutes, and was often together with us. Now it so happened that after the earthquake, and many of the people had gone away, Joseph and Nicodemus arrived at the cross. They were informed of the death of the crucified in the garden of our brethren, not far from Calvary. Although they loudly lamented his fate, it nevertheless appeared strange to them that Jesus, having hung less than 7 hours, should already be dead. That's probably wasn't it said of Pilate? How can he not have lasted that long? Like people are up there for days. They could not believe it, and hastily went up to the place. There they found John alone. It's John the beloved. He having determined to see what became of the beloved body. Joseph and Nicodemus examined the body of Jesus, and Nicodemus, greatly moved, drew Joseph aside and said to him, As sure is my knowledge of life and nature, so sure it is possible to save him. But Joseph did not understand him, and he admonished us that we should not tell John of what we had heard. Indeed, it was a secret which was to save our brother from death, or John from death, right? Because if he found out and he figured out and he told somebody by accident, well, he'd probably be put to death, executed. Nicodemus shouted, "We must immediately have the body with its bones unbroken, because he may still be saved." Then realizing his want of caution, he continued in a whisper, "Saved from being infamously buried." He persuaded Joseph to disregard his own interest, that he might save their friend by going immediately to Pilate, and prevailing upon him, or begging him for permission, or let them permit them to take Jesus' body down from the cross that was very night and put it in a sepulchre, or the tomb, hewn in the rock close by, and which belonged to Joseph. I understand what he meant. Remained with John to watch the cross and prevent the soldiers from breaking the bones of Jesus, as they did with the robbers, the two thieves on the other side of him. No corpse is allowed to remain on the cross overnight, and the next day being Sunday, they would now take him down and bury him early. Okay, so this is undermining the scriptures where it says he was hung up there on Thursday, died, was taken down on Friday, embalmed, etc., etc., and then at sunset was put into the tomb and the rock close across it. Suspicious. The Jewish council had already demanded of Pilate an order to the soldiers to break the bones of the crucified, that they might be buried, because they might still be alive and someone would get them done and then run away. Live on. Cause them more problems, right? Soon after Joseph and Nicodemus had departed, each one of on a sacred mission, a messenger arrived bringing the order to the centurion to take down the corpses and bury them. I myself was greatly agitated by this information, for I knew if he were not handled with great care, he could not be saved, and still less if his bones were to be broken. Even John was dismayed, though not from fear of the plans being frustrated, for of these he did not know. But he was deeply grieved at the thought of seeing the body of his friend mutilated. These Romans smashing his legs with a hammer or whatever. For John believed that Jesus was dead. He really thought he was dead. He was convinced he was dead. As the messenger arrived, I hastened to him, thinking and hoping that Joseph already might have seen Pilate, a thing of which there in reality was no possibility. "Does Pilate send you?" I asked of him, and he answered, "I came not from Pilate, but from a secretary who acts for the governor in such unimportant matters." The centurion, observing my anxiety, looked at me in the manner of a friend. I said to him, "You have seen that this man that is crucified is an uncommon man. Do not maltreat him, for a rich man among people is now with Pilate to offer him money for the corpse, that he may give it decent burial. My dear brethren, I must here inform you that Pilate often did sell the bodies of the crucified to their friends, or sell them back to them, that they might thus bury them." Well, if you want them back, pay us some coin. It's the only way you're going to get them back. And the centurion was friendly to me, inasmuch as he had conceived from the events that Jesus was an innocent man. This would probably be Longinus. And therefore, when the two thieves were beaten by the soldiers with heavy clubs and their bones broken, the centurion went past the cross of Jesus, saying to the soldiers, "Do not break his bones, for he is dead." And a man was seen rapidly approaching along the road from the castle of Antonia to cavalry. That's like the cavalry. That's like the great fortress, the Roman fortress. They oversaw the Jews, etc., whatever they're doing in the marketplace, whatever, and they spotted some trouble going on, so they went down there and stopped it, right? They kept an eye on things. Supposedly, I've forgotten this guy's name, he's a bit of an eccentric, father, what's his name, can't remember his name, white beard, and he apparently stands on the motorway and sings all these songs, and he's quite annoying, but he's got this big cross on him. He was a, what's his name, brother Nathaniel, yeah, that's his brother Nathaniel, that guy, pretty humorous, you know, good videos, that guy, okay, we've lost our chain of thought there. We might come back to it. We'll remember it's brother Nathaniel, sorry. Okay, Pilate decided to know if Jesus was indeed dead. do not break his bones, for he is dead. And the man was seen rapidly approaching the road from the castle of Antonia to Calvary. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we lost thoughts there for a moment. This brother Nathaniel was the one who said that Wailing Wall, or the Jews in Israel got their prayer books and their Torah, whatever they're reading from, and they're banging their head against, more, doing copulation, acting out copulation or something with this wall. That wall is actually the remaining wall of Antonia, not the temple wall. Because remember, the temple was destroyed in AD 70 or something by the Romans, and all the Jews and that were driven out. So he's saying that's the Antonia, that's the Fort Antonia wall, and that the actual Jerusalem wall of that temple is further down. It's in another region of Jerusalem. It's a map, and it shows you that wall, supposedly that Wailing Wall, which is the fortress of Antonia, and if way down the bottom, that's where that temple wall actually was. It's just what we found when we came across that doing our research years ago. He advanced to the centurion and brought to him the order that he should quickly come to Pilate. The centurion then questioned the messenger and to learn what Pilate wanted of him at so late an hour of the night. The messenger answered that Pilate desired to know if Jesus was indeed dead. So he is, said the centurion. Therefore we have not broken his bones. To be the more sure of it, one of the soldiers struck his spear, Longinus, into the body in such a manner that it passed over the hip and into the side. It's Longinus, according to theologians, records, etc., etc., supposedly. The body showed no convulsions, and this was taken by the centurion as a sure sign that he actually was dead, and he hurriedly went away to make his report. But from the insignificant wound flowed blood and water, at which John wondered, and my hope revived. For even John knew from the knowledge of our brotherhood that from a wound in a deep body flows nothing but a few drops of thickened or clotted blood. But now there flowed both water and blood. And there was supposedly scientific research, etc., etc., and animation which showed from these experts that could only mean if you have they must have speared his heart up through the ribs in his heart, and then it burst, and out came blood and water. Okay, and to them, that verified he was still alive, temporarily, right? And then that blood splashed on that Longinus, the Roman soldier's face, and like you see on those movies, and he truly was an innocent man because healed him or something like that, and you realise, etc., etc. I was deeply anxious that Joseph and Nicodemus should return, and at last some Galilean woman were seen approaching on their return from Bethania. Okay, is that real, Bethania, or is that supposed to be Bethany? Because maybe this is from the Latin. Not really sure, but this here is an N suffix, which would mean that this land was occupied by Bethans or somebody like that, right? It's a Greek Latin loanword. Yeah. We believe it to be an N suffix. Like they have Syria, Mongolia, Asia, Persia. They all have these on the end of them. Okay, because they're named by the Greeks, etc. These are Greek names, loanwords. Well, this is a loanword added to it. Whether they had brought Mary, the mother of Jesus, in the care of the Esseer friends, and among the women who was also Mary, the sister of Lazarus, who had loved Jesus, and she wept loudly. Well, she would weep even louder. She was like, "They should have married me. Could have been together." But before she could pour out her grief, and while John was gazing intently at the wound in Jesus' side, heeding nothing else, Joseph and Nicodemus returned in great haste. Joseph, through his dignity, had moved Pilate, and Pilate, having received information as to the death of the crucified, gave the body to Joseph, and without taking pay thereof. Well, see, Pilate's wife, she must have believed. She heard about Christ, etc. Whatever her name was. Let's say it was Helena, right? She believed, and she told her husband, I had a dream, mate. I had a dream that you shouldn't kill this man. He's an innocent man. But Pilate said, I do what I do, or whatever, I'm the man, I'm the procurator here. I have to do this, right? For Pilate had a great reverence for Joseph and secretly repented of the execution. Okay, he had regrets, right? Because he realised, oh my gosh, I put a man to death, a man who's innocent, probably. When Nicodemus saw the wound, flowing with water and blood, his eyes were animated with new hope. Oh, he's alive. He might actually be alive. And he spoke encouraging, foreseeing what was to happen. Probably speaking to Joseph, right? He drew Joseph aside to where I stood, some distance from John, and spoke in a low, hurried tone. Dear friends, be of good cheer and let us to work. Jesus is not dead. He seems so only because his strength is gone. While Joseph was with Pilate, I hurried over to the colony and fetched the herbs that are useful in such cases. But I admonish you that you tell not John that we hope to reanimate the body of Jesus, lest he could not conceal his great joy. And dangerous indeed would it be if the people should come to know it, for our enemies would then put us all to death with him. What? He's still alive? What the? These people are saying he's still alive? Stone them, blasphemers, and that sort of thing. To take them out of the city, probably, or round the corner, and chuck stones on them and all sorts of stuff. Kill them, put them to death. After this, they had hurried to the cross, and according to the prescriptions of the medical art, they slowly untied his bonds, drew his spikes out from his hands, and with great care laid him on the ground. Thereupon Nicodemus spread strong spices and healing salves or ointments on long pieces of byssus, which he had brought and whose use was known only in our order. Must be some sort of plant, right? These he wound about Jesus' body, pretending that he did so to keep the body from decaying until after the feast. It was like the Passover, I think, when he would then embalm it. These spices and salves or ointments had great healing powers and were used by Esseer brethren who knew the rules of medical science for the restoration to consciousness of those in a state of death, like fainting, or probably experiencing a near-death experience. And even as Joseph and Nicodemus were bending over his face and their tears fell upon him, they blew into him their own breath and warmed his temples. Still, Joseph was doubtful of his recovery to life, but Nicodemus encouraged him to increase the efforts. Nicodemus spread balsam in both the nail-pierced hands, but he believed that it was not best to close up the wound in Jesus' side, because he considered the flow of blood and water therefrom helpful to respiration and beneficial in the renewing of life. You could pose that to a doctor, an expert, a surgeon, to see what they would say. If they say, oh yeah, that's possible. Nah, come on, man. That's rubbish, right? You know. In the midst of his grief and sorrow, John did not believe that life would return to the body of his friend, and he did not hope to see him again until they should meet in Sheol, right? The place of the dead, in the Hebrew, right? The abode of the dead. The body was then laid in a sepulchre or tomb made in the rocks, which belonged to Joseph. They then smoked the grotto with aloe and other strengthening herbs, and while the body lay upon the bed of moss, still stiff and inanimate, they placed a large stone in front of the entrance, that the vapours might better fill the grotto. This done, John with some others went to Bethany, to comfort his grief-stricken mother. But Caiaphas, although it was the Sabbath day, had sent out his secret spies. So they saying that it was a Sunday earlier, that it was a Sabbath day. So that would verify, if this is all true, which we are pretty doubtful, that Sabbath wasn't on a particular day. It just happened to fall on that Sunday. So, like, what are they called? Words last chance, and they're saying, oh, there's been a breach of the Sabbath, somebody changed it, etc., etc., according to the book of Daniel, wherever their sources are, wherever they're getting it from the New Testament. that they actually fall on the you have the new moon on the 1st, which is just a indication of the new moon, new month. That's when a ram was taken up on a hill, sacrificed in the blood of that lamb, spotless, etc., was sprinkled on all the people to forgive them of their sins. Wasn't actually a Sabbath, and then you had 6 days you had to work, so that would be the 7th. The 6th day would be on the 7th of the month, which is a preparation day. Do all your work, talk all your talk, and then when the sun sets, that's an indication of the the Sabbath starting, which would be the 8th. So then the cycle would continue. So it would be the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd and 29th of that month, usually consisting of 29 days. And on that 29th night or evening, you would look into the night sky for the crescent moon, and if you could see it, well, that's the end of the month basically, because the next day is the 1st, indication of a brand new month, etc. But if you couldn't see it because of the darkness or the clouds or whatever, then you would have this optional day when that night you should see it. So that's apparently the true Sabbaths, not the Saturday, Sunday, Seventh-day Adventist and Roman Catholic ones. But then they had some branch off that, or break away from them, and said, no, they're completely wrong. It's the 9th, 7 days later, the 16th, the 23rd, and the 30th, or something like that, you know. They said, no, that original was last chances wrong because it's these days. So it was never a fixed day, each day, Sabbath day on the month. Like you're using the Roman Catholic calendar as a guide to when they, so you can see what days those Sabbaths, those dates, those days that the Sabbath actually falls on. Okay, Roman Catholic calendar is Gregorian. Okay, and all the planets on there are named after their gods. All their days are named after their gods, right? Their months are named after their gods, etc., etc. We're not going to go into that. Probably Juno, Augustus, etc., etc., right? It's all Roman Catholic. So other people like Seventh-day Adventists go, right, every Saturday is the Sabbath. And then you got the other church denominations, the Sunday goers, say, no, done away with the Sabbath, all that sort of stuff. The day of rest is Sunday, and you go to church on Sunday. That's the Lord's Day because He rose again, all this sort of stuff, right? So everybody has their differences. Okay, so we think that you get the picture, or we should get the picture of what this book is all about, according to this guy, this person who is supposed to be an eyewitness to death, crucifixion and death of Christ, etc., etc. Translated possibly into the Latin and then translated by this guy, this author, into English and presented via this book. So if you found that exciting, then and you really liked it, then give us a like, give us a clap, give us a like, and then subscribe to our channel, add your comments below, tell us what you think. Okay, we think this is probably not, possibly not as true as they're claiming it to be. Okay, we'll have to do more research on it. Yeah, just some things in here just don't match Scripture, right? As you probably just realised, or you've realised.